What's going on? I am Merkaba18. I am bringing you today a brand new build for Season 2. This is going to be the Blood Necromancer build, including a walkthrough of the Paragon board, the talent tree, which you see here on the screen, as well as the vampiric ability choices. I'm going to save itemization. I will link to some itemization choices that I will be making once I figure out how common the Uber uniques are, how common the new uniques are, and we do some work on that. But I wanted to give you guys a quick little update on the guide and the changes that I've made to this based on the dev chat and the patch notes and what we know is coming. So let's dive right in and go through the talent calculator. We're going to show you the Paragon board and glyph choices, and then I'm going to talk about go in depth on the vampiric abilities and why I made the choices that I made. So we're going to go with Hemorrhage and then move it all the way down to Initiates. Now, the base overarching theme of this build is you're going to want to stay as healthy as possible, gain some Fortify, and then do damage in addition to your normal damage as a result of being healthy and fortified. You're also going to want to focus heavily on Overpower. I think this build is going to take advantage of the new changes to Overpower as a stat priority. Now, again, you don't want to necessarily ignore vulnerable or crit strike damage or critical strike chance. The vulnerable especially is going to be something that is pretty prioritized for everybody still. So almost everything is going to be a little bit more vulnerable, but this build is focused heavily on Overpower, healthy, and healthy damage. So keep that in mind as we walk through this board. We're going to go with Blood Lance 5 out of 5 and move it all the way up to Supernatural so that you get a guaranteed Overpower and a chance to spawn a Blood Orb under the enemy that you hit. Now, you could make the case that Blood Surge is a different choice, but that is an entirely different build. If you like Blood Surge, this is not the build necessarily for that style. This is more of an AoE, whereas this is a single target nuke. This is your essence builder and your basic skill. We're going to move down here to a Blood Mist. This is a way of sort of becoming immune for a short time in case you're taking a lot of damage. It'll also heal you. And then we're going to come up here and get the base modified Fortify so that each time it hits an enemy, you gain a percentage of your life as Fortify. That's called Dreadful Blood Mist there. Don't worry, I will come back up and I'll talk about the passives here in just a second. We're going to come down here to Decrepify. We're only going 1 out of 5 here because the damage reduction and slow isn't going to go up that much from one rank to the other, and you can get some of these in skill choices as well. And we had to pick up a lot of passives in this build, so we want Decrepify. We just don't necessarily want 5 ranks of it here. And then you kind of want to prioritize increasing this via other gear choices. We're going to come down here to Enhance Decrepify so that they have a chance to be stunned, and Abhorrent so that you have a chance to, when they are afflicted with Decrepify, you have a chance to reduce your cooldowns, which is huge both for Blood Mist and for our alt, as well as Corpse Tendrils down here. All right, now keep in mind as we go through this too, this is a build based on not having any minions. So this is a sacrifice build. So we're going to take all of the blood passives here, Gruesome Mending, Coalesced Blood, Drain Vitality, and Tides of Blood. And we're going to pass on Transfusion because we're not going to have any minions active. We're going to go with 5 out of 5 on Corpse Tendrils, and then we're going to go with the Blood Orb chance on drop. We're going to come down here, and our alt choice this time is Bone Storm. I think this is the best alt by far across builds. The only thing that I would say Blood Wave is useful for is potentially for PvP. I just don't particularly like it very much. And Bone Storm just has, especially with the damage reduction and the crit strike chance down here while active, it's just really, really strong. So until they fix some of these other alts, that's the choice we'll make. This is our passive. We're going to go with Rathma's Vigor. We're going to get a base increase to 10% life, and while being healthy for 12 seconds, which is probably with this build going to be most of the time. The idea with this build is you're not taking any damage necessarily because it's going to absorb Fortify, you're going to have shields, etc. And then based on that, you're going to get a guaranteed Overpower with your next blood skill. All right, let's go back up and talk about some of these passives. I talked about, we did do the passives for all the blood across the board. We're not going to take any of these on the second tier or any of these on the third tier. This is where the passives start to get really, really important. Death's Embrace is getting a little bit of a nerf in the patch, but this is still one of the best passives in the entire game, particularly for blood. And almost every enemy is going to be close to you to some degree, so you're going to get a little bit of damage increase and a little bit of damage decreased in terms of damage taken right out of the gates. We went with Amplify so that we do 10% or 12% more damage to cursed enemies, which will hopefully be everybody when we're using Decrepify. Again, I told you we took all the blood passives there. And then this is where the sacrificed minions come in. We're going to take damage reduction because we don't have any minions active. And then we're also going to get a bonus to our sacrifice bonuses. We didn't go 3 out of 3 there. We just went 2 out of 3 because we ran out of points. Okay, now let's go ahead and bring the Paragon board over here. And I'm going to make sure that we are capturing this one, un momento, while we switch the screen. Now you should see the Paragon board. Yes. Okay. So right out of the gates, you're going to see we have 4 boards here. And let me talk about the glyph choices. Now, there is a way in which you can min-max choices and put these in different orders so that your minor increases to damage or minor increases to damage reduction or passives. There's a whole lot of min-maxing that you can do with this. This is where it gets complicated. But for the most part, I'm going to choose overarching themes here and try to focus on those. So let's talk about the glyphs. The 4 glyphs that I'm using are Blood Drinker, Dominate, Sacrificial, and Imbiber. And I went with, let me see, this is the glyph. We went Dominate first because Overpower is one of the most important stats for us in Overpower damage. We did pick up, if we can zoom in down here, we did pick up these rare nodes and then all of the stuff around them because resistances are more important, particularly for endgame bosses. And at the max life, anytime you can see a max life choice or a fortify choice, and then damage that's augmented off of that, those are going to be choices you're going to want to make. We did skip this one because I don't think armor is going to be nearly as important anymore, given that it only does physical damage reduction and not spell damage. We did choose the resistances because I think for endgame bosses, those are going to be important. Okay, so for our second board, we went with Bloodbath. So Bloodbath is the second board we chose, and that gives us a legendary node, which guaranteed overpower that deals attacks that are guaranteed to overpower deal 50% more overpower damage. Very, very important central piece of this build. Second glyph I chose is Imbiber. This is going to give us increased damage while healthy, which should be most of the time. And then you will also gain increased potion healing, which is critical. Okay, so we did then choose Healing Received. We chose all of the intel and willpower choices that we could here so that we reached that bonus threshold. I did go with Damage While Healthy, and I went with Hardened here for Damage While Fortified as well. And then we came across over here and we worked our way to Thick Hide and to Suffused Resilience, which reduces damage over time and resistances. I think that's going to be super important, especially for like Duriel and some of the endgame bosses. We came up here to Guarded and got that Damage While Fortified and Fortified Generation. So again, you're going to want to stay as healthy and fortified as possible and then gain damage and overpower as a result of that. Here we go base overpower damage and base damage while healthy and some of the glyph choices around it. And then for our third board, we went with Blood Begets Blood, which is a legendary node. Blood orbs grant increased damage up to 15%, which is going to be most of the time. You're going to have blood orbs on the ground because there's going to be lots of enemies, and you're just going to gain a 15% damage over 5 seconds while picking those up. And that should be up almost all of the time while you're fighting large groups of mobs. So we then went and chose, like I said, Sacrificial is our third node glyph, and that's going to give us a bonus to all magic nodes within range. They're highlighted here. These are magic nodes and rare nodes. And those are going to also give us a 10% bonus increase across the board while we have no minions active. So just a flat out bonus. And then all of these little overpower damage bonuses are going to go way up. I did choose Dexterity here just as a way to get to it, but that's not necessarily a stat priority. So we're also going to get more healing from blood orbs, and we're also going to get more blood orb drops as a result of that. We did come over here as well and get that overpower bonus and all of the damage, just flat out damage buffs across the board there. We came up and we got Invigorated, which is increased damage after picking up a blood orb. Huge. This one right here, by the way, is 400% damage after picking up a blood orb. So you're going to see that 0.1 and you're going to panic, but you got to remember you're going to be picking up blood orbs almost constantly. So you're basically going to count on that 400% increased damage the moment after you pick up a blood orb. And there should be an indicator on your bar to look for that. That's when you're going to hit with the blood lance. That blood lance is going to go off. So we are going to come then up here to our fourth board, which is Scent of Death. That is going to give us our last legendary node. While at least two corpses are nearby, you gain damage reduction. When you have no corpses nearby, you deal increased damage. Now, what that essentially means is that if there's a bunch of stuff around you and you're gaining corpses, you're going to take less damage. If you're opening up and you don't have anything dead yet, you're going to do more damage to them. So it's just it's a double edge bonus there. Very, very useful node. And our last glyph is Blood Drinker here. This is going to give us a bonus to all magic nodes and a flat out fortify bonus every time we pick up a blood orb. We then picked up all of the nodes that we needed around you can ignore ones that are like armor or dexterity, but everything else around here like willpower, damage to injured enemies, all of those are going to gain bonuses as a result of that. This is where the choices started to come in a little bit. I chose personally to ignore some of these damage to injured enemies because those are circumstantial and damage to healthy. And I went over here instead to just a flat increase to crit strike damage. And then if we get that bonus, you get an extra 15%. So this is a way of ensuring that we get a little bit of crit bonus and crit damage bonus as well. The final choice there was Scent of Death. Okay, now for the big kahuna. Everybody's been talking about these vampiric abilities. Let me switch the scene here, and then I will walk you through my choices for the vampiric abilities. And there are some tough ones here. So essentially, this is going to break down. You get 22 total abilities, and you can use any 5 at any time. You just have to make sure that you match the packs that you need for those in order to activate them, and then you can upgrade them as you go. There are minor and major. As you might expect, the major ones are more expensive. The minor ones are less expensive, easier to get the packs for those. So as a result of that, I went with 4 minor and 1 major, which is probably what you're going to want to do with most builds here. But let's talk about the major one first. I chose Blood Boil because it was the best fit for this build, and that one is going to require 6 Eternity. And then what you'll need to do is know this. When your core skill overpowers an enemy, you spawn blood drops, excuse me. Collecting a blood drop causes it to explode, dealing damage around you. Every 20 seconds, your next skill is then guaranteed to overpower. So it's another way of doing a little bit of AoE and guaranteeing an overpower as well. And that's going to work really well with our choices on the passive boards here, or the smaller minor vampiric powers. I chose Hemomancy, Rampart, Sanguine Brace, and Undying. So let's talk about the first one. Hemomancy is a 3 Eternity Pact requirement. Your attacks deal 80% of your max life as physical damage to all nearby enemies. This can occur only once every 4 seconds. You heal for 1% of your max life for each enemy that is damaged in that way. So it's a way of building in a little bit of AoE and a little bit of easy healing. Super, super good for endgame nightmare dungeons and bosses. We're going to then go down to Rampart, which is the second choice. After not moving for 3 seconds, you gain a barrier for 40% of your max life. For 6 seconds, this effect can only occur once every 20 seconds. So you're just going to want to stand still for a moment, and most of the time that's not hard to do, especially if you're using the passive immunities and the different ways in which you're maybe casting hemorrhage. Those are going to, basically, you're going to have this up as often as possible. And a 40% barrier to your life for 6 seconds is huge, especially for big hits, big groups, big elites. That's going to give you a little bit of bonus healing, make it a little bit easier for you to not take damage, which then results in you doing more damage. Sanguine Brace is a pact requirement of 1 Divinity, 1 Eternity. When you kill an enemy, fortify yourself for 6% of your base life. When you have more fortify than half of your max life, you gain crit strike chance. Super important because you're going to gain a lot of fortify with this build, and this is a way to help boost that, and again, as a result, do more crit strikes. Then we're going to go down to Undying. Casting skills heals you for 3% of your life. Double this bonus when you're below 50% health. That's obviously just a easy, free way to gain some free health, and then as a result of that, do more damage. And then if you do take a giant chunk of damage it's going to give you even more, 6% life for every skill that you cast as well. So that is the choices that I make. Like I said, I will link to some of the gear choices and different items that you might want to prioritize in this once we get a sense of how easy it is to obtain some of these new uniques. And then we'll go from there. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to subscribe, like, and we do stream this game live over on Twitch and on TikTok. Thank you so much for watching. See you again for the next build.